Good evening, everyone. This is Stan from New Jersey Electric Vehicle Association. Today is Wednesday, January 11th, 2023. And we have a meeting, very well packed. And we will have two major presentations. So one by David Schatz from WiTricity. He's going to talk about charging simplicity. And after that, I'm going to talk about the new IRA regulation. What is the take by Electric Vehicle Association? So I hope that it will be very, very useful for you. So without further ado, I would like to introduce David. David, could you please start by saying something about the background of yourself and the company, and then
Sure.
It's all yours now.
Okay, thanks very much and welcome to everybody. Thank you for joining us. So my name is David Schatz, and I lead the product management function at WiTricity. I've been with the company almost since our founding. The company is a spin out from MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. It was founded in 2007. I joined the company in 2008 and have led our sales and business development and lead our product management now. So I'm an engineer by training, but have worked most of my career in different kinds of sales and marketing and product management roles. So WiTricity, as I said, it was
David, we forgot to launch the poll. Is it a good time?
I'm sorry, to do what?
To launch the poll.
Oh, sure. Go. Feel free. Yep.
Okay, guys. So let me know, what do you think about wireless charging for the future of e-mobility? This is very one simple question. Check out all the options. What do you think is where you see the wireless charging? Residential, workplace, rapid charging, supercharging, or bike charging, taxi, bus, medium and heavy duty vehicle charging.
Dan, how are we supposed to indicate our choice? Because when I click on that, nothing happens.
Really?
Is it in the chat?
Yeah, I can't. I seem to see the results and not be able to enter data as well.
Everything is 0%. So we can't enter the data somehow.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
I think that's probably because I have already opened it today. Relaunch.
Yeah, so you're showing that.
Relaunch poll.
There we go.
About now.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Not sure.
I start seeing some answers.
What's MHD vehicles?
Medium heavy duty. Boat charging, in-road, aviation. And that means charging in air. Okay, we have 16 answers. I think that's it. Okay, I'm going to end the poll and I'll share the results. So now you should be able to see it.
Yeah.
So as you can see, almost everyone, 15 out of 16, thinks that it's good for workplace charging, but also very popular for residential charging, bus charging, and maybe even rapid charging. Somewhat taxi, and then nothing. Of course, the aviation is the last one. But you know, when I created the poll, I put it on purpose. If we have time, I'll tell you my crazy idea around this. But anyway, David, I'm going to close it and you can keep going.
Okay. Sounds good. So getting back to the company. So the name of the company, WiTricity, is means wireless electricity. And the founders of the company were a team of theoretical physicists at MIT. They were motivated by a very simple problem. One of the professors there had a cell phone that back in the early 2000s, when the battery went low, the cell phone would start beeping, asking to be charged again. And this happened several times in the middle of the night with the phone waking him up. And he sat up in bed and said, there must be a way that we can get all this energy that's moving around through the wires in the house into the phone without having to connect it with a wire to prevent, batteries from draining. And that led them to think about how to do that in a way that was going to be safe for people, efficient, and practical for use in everyday kinds of products. And they invented a technology that we refer to as highly resonant wireless power transfer. You can kind of think of it as induction on steroids, a way to transfer energy from using magnetic fields from a source device, a charging pad, if you will, and to be able to send it at very, very high efficiency over a relatively large air gap between the charging pad and the charging receiver, which would be underneath the car. And of course, the technology can be used in many different kinds of applications. Our business today is very focused on the application of this technology for e-mobility. We think it's a great fit because it can move large amounts of power. It can do it very efficiently, and it can do it in a way that's perfectly safe for people and animals and for the vehicle itself. So I'll tell you a little more about the technology itself. So let's see here. We like to say that electric vehicles themselves are beautiful, but that the power cords themselves are really not. And, there's, as electric vehicle owners yourselves, I'm sure you're aware of some of the pitfalls associated with having to plug your vehicle in. We know that early adopters of vehicles sometimes actually felt quite proud of the act of plugging their vehicle in as a way of gaining independence from the petrochemical industry and having to take your car to the gas station. But for the mainstream of car buyers in the world, a lot of research shows that the charging experience is the least favorable element of electric vehicle ownership. People love just about everything about electric cars. But a lot of people, especially people who don't even yet have them, are very wary of having to remember to plug it in and actually go through the act of plugging it in. And so we believe strongly that by streamlining the charging experience, electric vehicles will become more popular with the mainstream of the car buying public. And in addition to just being convenient, there's a lot of other sort of advantages to charging without a cord. Right now, I just want to show a little video.
This is an ordinary 2018 Tesla Model 3, but you're about to see it do something that is quite extraordinary.
1 second, is the audio coming through at all for you when I play the video?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay.
Isn't that amazing? Wait, what? You didn't see anything amazing? That is WiTricity's wireless charging solution. So what you're seeing here is this Tesla is charging wirelessly, just as fast as the plug, but with no cords, no cables, no hassle. Extraordinary.
So that particular vehicle and that demonstration, that's a vehicle that we at WiTricity, we purchased ourselves and we retrofit it with a wireless charging system that we designed and is manufactured for us by a maker in Asia that makes them also for a few other car companies, which we'll talk about. So that's a demonstration vehicle.
This is an
And as I said before, the problems that we're looking to address is it, that we say it's time to cut the cord. With many kinds of products today, things are completely wireless for all kinds of data connectivity and so on. Nobody plugs in to an Ethernet port anymore. About the only time you plug things in is when you have to plug it into an outlet on the wall or with an electric car. Today, of course, that's the only way to charge it. But there are problems maintaining the infrastructure. They're vulnerable to vandalism. The connectors themselves are vulnerable to damage through repeated plugging and unplugging cycles. The process, if charging cords sit around in a garage on a garage floor, they can become dirty. You might not want to handle them in bad weather. So there's definitely a lot of shortcomings to conductive charging. And there is a better way to do it. And this magnetic resonance that I described, the invention of the founders, offers a very good technology for charging electric vehicles. So the first thing to bear in mind is that some people think, well, how efficient could it be? It's not that efficient. Well, plug-in charging is not 100% efficient because the circuits, the onboard charger on your vehicle has to convert AC power from the grid into DC power that goes into the battery. In doing so, some of that energy gets converted to heat, and typical charging efficiency for plug-in charging can be anywhere from 90 to 95%. Wireless charging systems are 90 to 93% efficient, measured end to end. That's the energy that is delivered to the battery divided by the energy taken from the wall. So just as efficient as plug-in charging. These systems, some of you may use inductive charging pads for your mobile phone. And if you do that, those kinds of systems are kind of sensitive to how accurately you place the phone down on the charging pad. But magnetic resonance, as I said before, you think of it as induction on steroids, allows for quite a bit of positioning freedom, not only the distance between the ground and the vehicle, but also the parking misalignment that is inevitable whenever you pull in. So these systems are designed to handle quite a bit of parking misalignment. You don't have to park it perfectly in order to get a good charge. The systems can be just as fast as conventional plug-in. Our focus today is on level 2 charging. The sweet spot in the market in terms of demand from car makers these days is the 11 kilowatt charge rate for home charging. In some parts of the world, 22 kilowatts is desired because they have 3-phase power. But here in the US, I think most residential charging is done at between 6 and 11 kilowatts. The technology is capable of delivering hundreds of kilowatts. And in fact, wireless charging can be applied to transit buses and trucks and other heavy duty things. Though the focus of today's talk will be on level 2 charging for passenger vehicles. Because the technology uses magnetic fields to transfer the energy from the charging pad to the vehicle, magnetic fields really don't interact with concrete and asphalt, nor do they really interact with snow and ice and water. And best of all, they don't interact with living organisms especially fields that are as weak as the field that's used to transfer these fields. So it's perfectly safe for people, and it's perfectly able to charge even though the ground might be wet or the ground might have a few inches of snow and ice. It has no effect whatsoever on the energy transfer efficiency. The technology can be adapted to not only what we call park and charge, where you might have a charging pad in your garage at home or at a parking space at work or at a retail establishment, but it can also be applied to roadways in what we call semi-dynamic or fully dynamic charging. I would say those are still at a research level and prototype deployment, whereas the park and charge is really ready for prime time commercialization by car makers. And then finally, a very important aspect of this wireless connection of the vehicle to the grid is that this technology is intrinsically bidirectional. The coils that couple to send the energy to the vehicle, they don't really care which way the energy flows. The electronic systems that are connected to the coils do have to, of course, be designed either to charge or to do what you call V to G, or to do both. But we've demonstrated that these systems are very capable of doing V to G or bidirectional power transfer. And that's in the future viewed to be a very important feature of this wireless connection. If you think about it, when your vehicle is fully charged and you go to a parking place, let's say at your office, how motivated are you to plug it in only to give energy back to or even to sell energy back to the grid? And a full battery is the most desirable target, if you will, for when the grid does need energy. But if you can be connected to the grid simply by parking in a parking space without having to actively plug it in, then many, many more vehicles become available to the grid to be able to serve as what they call virtual power plant. So we think that becomes a very important future capability. These are a few of the, so this is a technology that's been in development, as I said, since 2007 at WiTricity, and it's been deployed in quite a few vehicles already. And over the next several years, we expect it'll be deployed in many, many more vehicles. We see 2025, 2026 as being a real important inflection point. So some of the brands that have introduced this, BMW introduced the vehicle in 2019, the 530e iPerformance, which was a plug-in hybrid without a plug that offered wireless charging. It was sold in California and in Europe and in China. Hyundai Genesis introduced the vehicle in South Korea in 2022, the GV60, which is built on the same platform as the Ioniq, the EV6 and the Ioniq 5. They share common underpinnings, and the Genesis vehicle has WiTricity wireless charging. If you happen to have a couple of $1 million available and could afford a McLaren, the McLaren Speedtail in 2020 was introduced with wireless charging. And then most recently, a very important brand in China, FAW, through their Hongqi label, they introduced the EHS9 SUV with wireless charging as well. And I had mentioned the sort of dynamic charging, how you could charge in a roadway. In the lower right, you see a picture of a test track that was built in Versailles, France in 2016, I believe it was. Vehicles with a very, very small battery pack were able to be propelled at highway speed at like 100 kilometers per hour without having to draw energy from the battery by if you will, a ribbon of these kinds of charging pads that were deployed in the road. And that's sort of the model that some of the companies that are and research organizations that are doing what we call dynamic charging are applying. So I just want to show a little bit more about the Hyundai experience. So what you see is this is the GV60 vehicle. It was introduced last year. The charging station, which looks rather large, was designed really for outdoor applications such as this. This is a venue in Korea where they demonstrate the capability. Here you see, the system's designed to work in all kinds of weather. We'll get to see the vehicle. This is the in-vehicle display that helps the driver to park in the right location. The little green icon flashing indicates that it's coupled and charging will begin. And here you see 10.7 kilowatts being delivered to the battery pack. Not only passenger vehicles can benefit from this technology, but commercial vehicles, fleets of buses can be charged both when they're densely packed at their depot waiting at night for the next day work. They can also be charged en route at the end of a route or at a traffic stop to do what's called opportunity charging. And that's the basis also of what you see at the top of the screen, these delivery trucks. Those are what we call the middle mile truck that would take goods from a central warehouse to a big box retail center or supermarket. And in those cases, vehicles can be charged while they're being loaded and unloaded, avoiding the need for a very expensive charging depot to be built for all the vehicles to charge at once. So it's friendlier to the grid to be able to distribute charging in space and time to even it out during the day, rather than trying to charge all of the vehicles at one time, even at night. Another important benefit of wireless charging is that it enables autonomous use cases, not only for passenger vehicles, robo-taxis, and eventually delivery vehicles, but even the sort of robots that are being developed for delivering packages and food and so on in urban environments. No driver, there's nobody there to plug it in. And wireless charging is really quite essential capability. One of the first ways in which autonomous driving is being delivered to the market is in doing valet parking. And I just want to show, so this is what you see on the screen now is the vehicle produced by FAW in China. And you can see there's no driver in this vehicle. Let me start the video. So the vehicle is self-parking. In China, almost all parking is done backing in to parking spaces. In fact, in most of Asia, that's the way it's done. So the vehicle is using its own autonomous driving capability to pull into that parking spot. You see the charging pad on the ground behind the vehicle right now. Once the vehicle gets over the charging pad is sending a very precise position information to the vehicle so that it parks itself really perfectly for energy transfer. You'll see that light. If I go back just a little, it starts charging when when the LED light on the nose of the vehicle lights up, that means it's starting to charge here. So we should see that. There you go. So completely autonomous parking and charging. So the way that this technology is going to be broadly applied is because one of the reasons is that it's been standardized by the Society of Automotive Engineers and other important standards organizations. So this is what allows one charging pad to be able to charge many different kinds of vehicles and vehicles from different car makers. So it's not as if I bought if you buy a Ford EV, you have to buy a Ford wireless charger. In fact, WiTricity will be selling charging systems that are capable of charging any vehicle that has a standard compliant charging technology. So just a little more about our company. It's still a privately held company. We have about nearly 100 employees, employees located around the world. We find that the Asian car makers are at the lead in terms of applying this kind of technology. The European car makers, in particular, the German car makers, are pretty close behind them. And the American car makers are probably going to follow and be the last to deploy, unfortunately. So we put our engineers out where the customers are and have a good presence in Asia, in both Korea and China, as well as in Europe. So that's what I have. If anyone has questions, and there's time, Stan, I'd be happy to entertain some questions.
David, thank you very much. That was fantastic presentation, and we do have questions in the chat. So I'm going to read them in the order. Margaret, okay, she's asking, how does the cost of magnetic resonance charging installation and hardware compare to plug-in charge?
Right, great question. So the installation of a system like this for a residential application, basically, it uses the same, essentially our 11 kilowatt system would use a 60 amp 220 circuit. And so the cost of running the wiring from the panel to where the wireless charger is, that's equivalent to installing a wired charger. The installation of what we call the wall box, which is what connects directly to the grid, and then that's what serves the charging pad on the ground. That's essentially the same as installing any kind of conductive charging wall box, right? Something done by a trained electrician. Then the next step is to attach the ground pad and position it on the ground. In some cases, it might be attached to the ground with, there are 4 bolt holes, but it doesn't move. It weighs about 50 pounds, so it stays where you put it. So the cost is probably nearly equivalent, maybe 10% higher than the cost of installing a conductive charger, because the process is very similar.
Okay, good. Next question, Eric Weiss. His question is around the lines when you were talking about safety, that the magnetic field does not interfere with non-magnetic materials, non-ferrous materials. His question is, what standards are applied to magnetic interference with extraneous devices such as pacemakers?
Yeah, so it's also a great question. The Food and Drug Administration and the medical device industry have a set of guidelines for what the strength of the magnetic field, what the limits are in terms of the strength of the magnetic field, such that they won't interfere with implanted medical devices. And so if anyone is if there are any engineers in the audience, those fields are expressed in terms of microteslas. And there's a field limit of 15 microtesla is the threshold. As long as you're below that, there's like really no chance of any interference whatsoever with the behavior of a pacemaker. And, you know, as I said before, these systems are perfectly safe for people. So there's been a lot of testing done both by the FDA as well as independent tests to prove that these systems emit very, very weak fields around the vehicle, essentially nothing inside the vehicle when you're, but you could lay down on the ground next to the vehicle with a pacemaker and you won't be exposed to
Right.
a field that is
I
in any
believe that
way
the
harmful.
magnetic field depends on the distance, right? So I guess if you are crawling over the pad and you have a pacemaker, that's probably not a good idea, right?
Well, so if you were able to do that, if your body was slender enough to, of course, when there's no vehicle there, the pad is not energized, and so
okay,
nothing would happen. So the pad on the ground communicates with the vehicle by Wi-Fi radio. So before it turns up the power and begins charging, it does, you know, they shake hands, the charger knows what vehicle is there, it knows that it should be allowed to charge there, it knows that it's positioned well, and then there are sensors in the ground pad to make sure that a person isn't trying to put their hand between the coils. Now, it turns out that nothing would happen. Like I've been with the company for a lot of years, and we often demonstrate you put your hand in between the coils. You can't even perceive any physical stimuli or anything like that. And these are called non-ionizing fields. So
right.
They're really very, very safe, and magnetic fields don't interact very, very weakly with living
Right.
things, which is why the scientists said, let's use magnetic fields to transfer the energy instead of using electric fields.
Mhm.
Right? Electric fields might be a little more challenging to make safe for people. So,
Very good. Next question by David Lawson. Can a car be retrofit with your tech, or does it have to be? Does it have to come from the factory already pre-installed?
yeah, that's another great question. So, in the long run for the market is clearly that the OEM should offer it, the car maker should offer it as an option. And we're engaged with car makers around the world to make that happen. But actually, we're in the early stages. I showed the video before of the Tesla Model 3. We've also upgraded Ford Mustang Mach-E, and we have intent to begin beta testing of a fleet of the Mustang Mach-E's, and then to be able to offer that as a upgrade pathway, starting with that vehicle, expanding to certain other vehicles as well. And on our website, if you visit WiTricity.com, there's a place where you can kind of register as interest, as being interested in, like, being kept aware of when and for which vehicles an upgrade would be available.
Okay. There are other questions, like whether it can be also DC, I suppose, like for Electrify America, I suppose that's all doable.
I'm sorry, for
DC fast charging.
So certainly systems like this have been built and can be built to do hundreds of kilowatts of charge rate. The size and weight of the component that goes on the vehicle does increase with power. So one of the reasons why the level 2 charging is felt to be a sweet spot for this is that we can produce a rather small, lightweight, inexpensive component to be integrated onto the vehicle And
Right.
since most charging, I think there are estimates that 90% of all of the energy that will be injected into electric vehicles, like passenger vehicles, will be done at level 2 charge rates, either
Okay.
at home or at work.
Yeah.
That's where our commercial focus is. While we could build systems that charge at a much higher charge rate, the economics for the passenger vehicle aren't so favorable.
Okay.
So
Um,
it's really the combination. So a vehicle equipped with wireless level 2 charging will certainly also have a DC CCS charge port or Tesla charge port
yes.
on it, so that you can take it to a fast charger if you're on a highway
Yeah.
and plug it in. So,
Okay.
so the systems can coexist.
Right. Okay. Let's go to the next one from Eric. So what is the load bearing capacity? Because, you may have distracted drivers who will drive over it.
Yeah, so there's a standard that's published by the International Standard Organization that describes it in a certain number of, basically, we had to drive over the charging pad, I think it was 10,000 times with a vehicle with one wheel to prove that it met the ISO standard for drivability. So yeah, it's designed, the ground pad is designed to be able to survive being driven over by passenger vehicles. So it's
Very good.
not only designed to be driven over, it can be submerged in 3 feet of water and won't leak internally and so on. So it has to be very robust in order, to survive in an outdoor environment and in something as unconstrained as, anybody's garage, right? You put it into 1 million garages, you'll find 1 million different crazy use cases, right? So,
Right. Okay. Very good. I think that is it regarding questions. So thank you very much.
hey, it's my pleasure.
So we thank you for being part of our series. We'll go to the next presentation. You are more than welcome to stay. I'm going to share screen after I find my presentation. Okay. Share screen. Which one? This one. Okay. Now, just for the disclosure, so this presentation was prepared by the Electric Vehicle Association policy team. So I don't take any ownership of this presentation. It has been fairly recently updated. So this presentation is about the Inflation Reduction Act and how it impacts the federal tax credit. So just for disclosure, besides what I said, so this is really a view of Electric Vehicle Association. The committee are not certified public accountants. So as for individual situation, whether you can actually apply credit in your situation, that is up to you. Yes, those rules, they change all the time. So this presentation may not be up to date, although it is as of January 6th. So the high-level take on investment reduction, Inflation Reduction Act from EVA is that it will dramatically accelerate adoption of electric vehicles, as well as spur the growth of electric vehicle production in North America. There will be shift of EV purchasing power towards low and middle income families because we have now used EVs credit. We have point of sale credits that are instant. We have caps on income and MSRP. It's also for EVSEs in low and middle income areas. and it's not indexed to inflation. It provides incentives to US EV manufacturers to increase production on the electric vehicles produced in North America. Credit up to $45 per kilowatt hour of battery production, which is between $1,000 and $5,000 per vehicle. And also it eliminates prior 200,000 unit cap. So in combination, these should encourage EV manufacturers to work towards affordable electric vehicles. What it will do, it will accelerate the transition from combustion engines to electric motors. It will be nationwide network of charging stations, and it will also fill gaps in the supply chain for key EV components, particularly the battery. Here are some prediction numbers when it comes what the legislation will what difference it will make, and it will be particularly for the battery manufacturing. It's almost $10 billion. The battery material production will be somewhat less, and then the EV manufacturing. But overall, there will be substantial boosts. Although there is a risk that it could result in dangerous trade war, which means that other countries could create their own incentives. So, and there is also substantial impact on US manufacturing, as I mentioned. So today the average cost of battery per kilowatt hour is 153 kilowatt hours. And it is expected that the new regulation will provide additional $45 discount to it per kilowatt hour. This chart shows the drop of cost of the batteries since 2008. And as you can see, it has decreased kind of tenfold already. And it is projected that it will continue to lower because of the incentive. And obviously, consequently, there is a brighter EV adoption outlook. Somewhere as early as the end of this year, we can see increase in EV adoption, and by 2025, the difference is projected to be about 6 or 7%. So by 2025, manufacturer tax credits will cover 25 to 30% of cell manufacturing costs. So this is pretty substantial. So what are the rules? So it is for 10 years and it's not indexed to inflation, which means something. So the tax credit it remains $7,500 per vehicle, just like before. And there are a number of criteria that must be met. So the criteria that is met today is final assembly in North America, cars under 55,000, or SUVs, vans, and pickup trucks under 80,000. When it comes to the individual differentiation, what is car versus SUV? It's funny. I've heard that some of the trims for Volkswagen ID.4 are considered car. I mean, the rear-wheel drive, and when it's all-wheel drive, then it's considered SUV. Go figure, right? The new rule is that there must be a buyer income cap, 150 to 300, depending on whether it's individual or family. Manufacturers, they get 2,000 to 5,000 tax credit per EV for the USA battery production. And that includes both BEVs and plug-in hybrids. There will be gradual implementation of bill to aid in adoption of EV ownership. Now, this table has lots of discrepancies. These are examples of affordable EVs, and specifically the Chevy Bolt today is actually even cheaper than the stated 30,695. I think the MSRP is, correct me, maybe 26,000. And another discrepancy is that Hyundai is not manufactured in the United States, so it's actually not eligible for the credit. And on this last column, this is California additional incentive. We have in New Jersey $4,000 for vehicles that are less than 45,000. So pretty much all of these except of Ford Lightning would be the Mustang Mach-E is also not eligible for 4,000, but anything between 45,000 and 55,000 MSRP is eligible for $2,000 rebate in New Jersey. This is the regulation called Charge Up New Jersey, and it's still in place. We did not exhaust the money. Yeah, so these are examples of non-eligible vehicles. So the Ford Mach-E that has all-wheel drive, extra battery capacity, not eligible. Extra size battery for pickup truck, not eligible. Tesla Model Y, 5 seats, not eligible. And those that are not made in America, that involves Hyundai, Kia, and Toyota, and many others. Now we have also EV tax credit for commercial sales, for light duty EVs. And there is no income cap and no MSRP cap. So if you remember, we had in some of the EV shows last year, Ford Transit EV Connect, and that vehicle would be eligible, okay, for $7,500 tax credit. And the manufacturers, they also get the credit to make it. So it's a double dipping, and it's eligible for both the BEVs and plug-in hybrids. Although the amount may change in 2024. What is not included are rental companies like Uber, Lyft, and Hertz. What is also new in this legislation is a tax credit for used vehicles, and it kicked in right now in January 1st. The tax credit is up to $4,000 per vehicle, but the vehicle must be less than 25,000, and it is the lower, either 4,000 or 30% of the cost. And the income cap is also lower for this category. It's 75,000 to 150,000, depending whether it's one person or family. And the credit is only one per EV. So it could be one for the first time when it's purchased new, and then when it's purchased for the second time. But you cannot sell it to your spouse. It has to go through a dealer, and it has to be at least 2 years old vehicle, 2 years after initial sale. Buyers limited to one every 3 years, right? So you cannot get this benefit more than once every 3 years. And also what is different that the incentives are available at time of purchase, because the buyer can have the auto dealership take the tax credit and apply it to the down payment for the purchase or for the lease. Although that starts in January 2024. So for that benefit, we'll have to wait 1 year. Now, what will be also coming is the battery requirements. As I mentioned at the beginning, the IRS, they have to make the decision, and they were supposed to do it by January 1st, but because the rule is so complicated and there were lots of comments from various organizations, including EVA, that the rules must be more transparent, and they have to be simple. They have to be predictable. Because imagine that you want to buy a vehicle, it's not available, so you place order, but it's not available next week or next month. It can take easily several months. And during this time, the regulation may change. So EVA actually submitted a suggestion to IRS that it should be linked to model years. So it's much easier to actually predict. The car makers, they can say, okay, for this model year, the battery
Sorry.
meets this.
Take
Somebody wants to say
the
something?
red onions. The pickled, yeah, that's
Could you
what I meant.
please mute yourself, Ira?
And is it this side too? Okay. And
Wait a second, I have
better?
to force mute him. Are you done? Okay, good. So back to the batteries. So half of the credit will be linked to the battery components, whether they are manufactured in North America, and the second half is linked to the critical materials. They must be either from US or from countries with which we have free trade agreement, or to use minerals that were recycled in North America. So essentially, this regulation is towards supporting production of batteries and sourcing the minerals in US and in countries that have the good check mark. Pretty much China and Russia are on the blacklist. And China is the biggest producer, by the way. This is our biggest national competitor. So it will start in March, and the rules will be available later as we get there. The classification of EVs. So as I mentioned, SUVs, minivans, trucks, 80,000, others 55. MSRP includes attached options, but not dealership options and not delivery cost, not taxes or registration, and not dealership add-ons or discounts. Not even discounts, right? But it can change. It can change. And in this table, there are some examples. I'll go to the next slide. Yeah, it's just another example. Now, following few slides are targeted to California, but I think we can learn something from these slides because they are talking about missing piece, and that missing piece applies to New Jersey as well. And it's about the equity in charging. Because the federal tax credit is also for charging, right? So we want to make sure that the charging is equitable. No ability to charge apartments, condos, older homes. BEVs are forced to use expensive and time-consuming fast chargers. As you know, fast chargers are always more expensive, and you have to plan to make a trip there and stay there, right? As opposed to just plugging it at home and enjoy your life. New multifamily housing being built that rations on-site charging, etc. There are a few interesting slides here. I'll just scroll through. These are the EVS incentives. Yes, so it says shift of EV purchasing power towards lower income families. I think we have said that. It's a dynamic, it's challenging, and it's because, again, as I mentioned, the battery requirements will be progressing from one year to another. The percentage of minerals that must be sourced from approved sources will go from 40-50% eventually to I'm not sure whether it's 80% or something like that. I don't think it's 100%. There are some references, and I think that's it. Some of the slides were hidden with charts that show how much does it cost to install charging later. Can you see this slide?
Yes.
Okay, so here is a difference between putting the charging from get-go when you are doing new construction versus retrofitting. I'm not sure where the reference is coming from, but for 60-unit multifamily, if you do it at the beginning, the added cost is $1,410. If you do it as a retrofit, then the estimate is $4,443, but then the actual cost from whatever company in California actually is $18,000. So that's very expensive. So we want to make sure that we put the charging at the time as the installation is happening. So that's what I have. How much time do we have? Okay. Do you have any questions regarding this one? Please unmute yourself.
I have a quick question, Stan.
Yes.
You mentioned that the social justice component for the charging. So what specifically does the IRA include for charging incentives for multifamily dwellings? Is there something like what we have in New Jersey with the new legislation?
This is a good question. I have seen this deck today for the first time, so I'm not quite sure what are the specifics of it, but it's a very good question. I would like to know myself.
Yeah, it's a real problem.
Yeah,
new dwellings. Yeah, new dwellings, easy. But we can't just tear down all the old dwellings and build new ones.
Yeah.
Do we have, and if I missed this, I apologize, but do we have clarity on whether leasing, because I've heard that leasing
That's right.
is eligible for the tax credit. So is it or is it not? Because I'm still.
There was a conversation on Facebook, and I initially kind of was ignoring it, and then I checked back with the policy team, and yes, that's true. So what is happening? So if you are a commercial entity and your business is leasing or selling vehicles, you can, I guess, dealerships. You can lease the vehicle and get the credit because it's considered not for personal use, but it's supporting businesses. So there is a loophole. The loophole is something that makes Mr. Manchin very upset because, as you know, he's not that much supportive for electric vehicles. Well, that's the perception. Yes, the thing is that if you are leasing a vehicle that it's not eligible, like a Hyundai, okay, because Hyundai is manufactured outside of United States at present time, apparently you can negotiate with the leasing company that they will pass some of the savings on to you as a final user, but you are leasing. You're on mute, Alex.
But the sellers could all claim, whether they're passing it on to you or not, all dealerships could claim these, right?
Apparently they're not required.
Yeah, they're not required to pass it on. They could just be claiming it and not telling people.
If I could make a statement on the tax credit for leases. Previously, before the Inflation Reduction Act was signed, for electric vehicles leases, it was at the discretion of the leasing company and the manufacturer to pass the tax credit as lease cash. The dealer does not own the vehicle, the leasing company does, so the dealer has no say on that tax credit. It's up to the leasing company and it's at their discretion whether that they will pass it or not. Before the Inflation Reduction Act was signed, even 2 years ago, manufacturers used to give tens of thousands of dollars of lease cash to electric vehicles to make them very affordable. But during COVID and during the car prices surge over the past year, even vehicles that were eligible for a federal tax credit that the leasing company could get, the manufacturer just chose not to pass it on to them, I guess just to keep it. For example, before, when the Hyundai Ioniq and the Kia EV6 were still eligible for a tax credit, those leases did not have that $7,500 passed to them, just because I guess Hyundai Financial Services just chose not to. So if this loophole is correct and it is able to be claimed by the leasing company, it's at their discretion again. And I recommend not harassing dealers because they're not the ones claiming the tax credit, the leasing company is. So.
Thanks, Anthony, for clarification. Well, the leasing company, the dealership is always involved in one way or another. But yes, I understand that the leasing company is actually holding the money. So thank you for the clarification. I would like to go, any more questions? Because I would like to go through some announcements through the email box that I have in the New Jersey EVA account. Yes, one of them is about Aptera. Let me wait a second. How do I do it without showing the whole screen? I'm going to share my screen anyway. Aptera will have a launch webinar, launch edition webinar. And it's going to be on January 20th, 2023. Here is a YouTube webinar link, webinar trailer. I'm thinking how to make it easier for you. What happens if I hit this link? Do you see the new slide?
Yep.
Okay, so I can actually copy and paste into chat. Here is the link to YouTube. Okay, what else do we have here? Lots of emails from the EVA policy. New EV incentives. Okay, I was discussing it. Transitional rules. There was a email about. Oh yeah, I sent out comments to New Jersey Department of Transportation, DOT, about their upcoming DC fast charging infrastructure solicitation, because they will have lots of money from NEVI and EVA federal funding. Now, in this email, this is invitation for a webinar by Plug-in America. If you would like to know more about the tax credit, it will be tomorrow at 10 a.m. If you would like to register, what I'm gonna do, I hit this link, I copy the link, and I paste it into chat. And I'm seeing that somebody made a comment here. Hyundai is planning on introducing manufacturing in the US. Well, there are lots of interest now to put manufacturing in the US. The US policy is so inconsistent that the car makers, they are not quite sure what is the best course of action. Because during the previous administration, those activities were kind of suppressed, or so to speak, not entirely incentivized. So I think that's is it. I want to cut it short because I know that everybody wants to spend their time with their family and have fun. So at this point, I'll turn the microphones to everyone who would like to say something. If you have something to share. Eric, I haven't seen you for a while.
Yes, Dan, I've been very busy and also had long COVID, but I'm much better now. So
Yeah.
nice seeing
I apologize. I didn't respond to your email for last month or something.
you.
But yeah, how is your ID4? You purchased the all-wheel drive, right?
Yes, I have the SUV version, made in Europe, and it's a remarkable car. I'm having a little. I'm not happy about the difference between the European and the American versions and the software update, which seems to be taking forever. They promise it, hasn't been delivered yet.
Yeah.
So that's that in a nutshell. And I also have my third. We just took delivery of a Toyota RAV4 Prime, also not made in America, but it's a pretty impressive vehicle. So I have a question about the upcoming EV shows and meets in the spring. Are we going to see some of those around anywhere?
Oh yeah, yes. And we can actually kind of transition to what's coming up. So we have Margaret Thompson here. Next week will be Hunterdon County Sustainable Jersey Hub meeting. And the goal will be to help. Margaret, why don't you talk about this a little bit?
Oh, hi, Stan. Sure. Yeah. So with Go Hunterdon, I run a hub which gets municipalities together to deal with lots of different issues, but we're focusing on EVs at our next meeting. And one of the great ideas we want to bring to Hunterdon County, the idea of an EV car show, which incorporates the first responders training, which I attended with Stan and several of you in Somerset County. And so that's one of the focuses that we'd like to have, is to get that going in Hunterdon County, as well as just working on adoption of EVs and helping with getting local municipalities and businesses to work on making Hunterdon County less of a charging desert than it is right now.
Isn't it odd? Because Mark Warner, he resides in Hunterdon County, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah, it's the nature of our rural county. I'm a driver of an EV. I got a EV6 back in May, and then was a quick second buyer, and we have our ID4 now as well as our second car in the family.
fantastic.
And in my job with Go Hunterdon, I'm working on EV adoption as far as
Very good.
to promote sustainable transportation in our area.
Yeah.
So thanks to Stan for your support, and these meetings are fantastic. Every time I'm attending, I leave and I'm doing research. Last time it was on the bi-directional charging, and now thinking about these charging pads. It's fascinating.
Yeah. So next week you will have a panel, and you will have, among others, Leanne McGowan. She's now at Sustainable Jersey, but before she was a program coordinator with RideWise, and she was the one who was very critical for us to put the, first responder training for Somerset County.
Excellent. Yeah. So we're trying to get, lots of experts, bringing you in, bringing some folks over from the NJEVA to answer questions about incentives, to answer questions about, installation of charging and all the best ways to do that. So I appreciate your participation in that next week, Stan. It's going to be really helpful.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. Okay. Anything else?
Dan, I have a question for everybody, actually. Glen Rock, so I know a number of you are in green teams or environmental commissions. On the Glen Rock Environmental Commission, and I helped the town get a grant for a clean fleet, buy one electric car for the purpose of one of the departments in the town. And we got the grant, and I've experienced a lot of molasses, a lot of slow adoption, and it's really hasn't gone anywhere yet. And I've been surprised, and I'm just wondering if any of the folks here have any experience with getting their towns to adopt a clean fleet, or get their towns to
Well,
purchase an electric car.
I can tell you I'm from Franklin Township, Somerset County, and our town adopted 10, not 5, 10 Chevy Bolt EVs in 2019/2000. I think it was December 2018, first 5, and the other 5 in July 2019. Now, that was long before any incentives existed. And it's very odd that they have done it. And the reason they have done it because the code office was running surplus. Now, I don't know all the rules, but for this specific one, if your code office is running surplus, then at the end of the year, you have to pass it to the state, unless you spend it within the office. So there must have been some influence from one of the good council people that they purchased those Chevy Bolts, okay? There was a big noise and I was like, hey, fantastic, we are going to drive electric, The sad story here is that the township is not really using those vehicles. They have 10 of them, and they have, for each of them, they have one charging station, okay? And additional 2 charging stations are in Department of Public Works. They passed 3 of those 10 vehicles to Department of Public Works. And that department is actually using those bolts relatively okay. They utilize them to about 20%. 20% based on the daily range. I'm kind of assuming that if they wanted to buy Chevy Bolt and not Nissan Leaf with shorter range, they wanted to use the range. So the utilization is calculated from how much you can drive in one day. And it's actually not counted in miles, but in battery capacity dispensed per day. So 20% for those vehicles, and for the 7 vehicles that are assigned for the main township campus, they have utilization like 5%.
Not much.
Very abysmal. So, this is interesting story that someone was pushing to use money that the township was like, okay, we either give it to state or we buy something, right? But they didn't really have a plan that those inspectors were supposed to be using it. But the problem is that they want to drive high clearance vehicles because they say that they have to go to different sites and they need high clearance. So they don't use those vehicles. Do we have someone else? Yeah.
Any other experiences?
Yeah, I'd like to offer a comment about Glen Rock and Ridgewood. To me, are places which might be favorable. I live in a place called Wayne, and Wayne is not favorable. We've gone before this. I'm not involved with city government, but we've gone before the township council. We the ward people, and the Public Works, Police Department, High School. It's all in one giant complex. And we said, why don't you install some chargers? Just start by installing some chargers for police for future uses. It went nowhere. But that may change because that was before the IRA and the incentive program. So we'll see. It's still pretty much a desert in Wayne, New Jersey.
Well, yeah, not too different in Glen Rock and Ridgewood, I have to tell you.
Yeah, and in Metuchen, earlier they didn't want to be the first adopters. Like the police department wasn't really supportive. They had certain requirements, and now that we have other police stations that have, for example, use Teslas or things like that, now the cars aren't available or the prices aren't good or whatever, which there's some truth to that. So, but we'll see with these new incentives. So,
Ken, if you're looking for a reference or, a town that you could point your town to, I read recently that my town, Millburn, has just purchased a couple of EVs. And I just found the article.
Great.
Police department
Please.
recently purchased two hybrid electric Ford Escape police parking enforcement patrol vehicles. So not as exciting as a true EV, but the plan is to use them for parking enforcement and have a dedicated charger at the police station.
That's a
to,
good. That's a good start.
charge.
That's a good start, actually.
Which is the department that has the Ford Mach-E police car?
Maplewood.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yep.
And the county, Bergen County, the prosecutor's office actually bought a Tesla police car for the purpose of allowing it to be used by all the different towns in Bergen County, the police department, so they can check it out. And I actually saw it parked actually in downtown Glen Rock one day, and I just haven't gotten any feedback from the town about what they thought of it. But so there are various folks poking their way into it, but it's there's tremendous there's I don't know, people have various reasons why they don't want to be the first, or it's too expensive, or whatever. But anyway, appreciate those sharing your experiences.
Ken, if you crack that nut, let me know.
Will do.
Mario is very active in Hunterdon County, so that's very good.
Yeah, I'm the chair of the Environmental Commission in Clinton Township, and I've also been trying for many years to see if we can purchase some EVs and the municipal fleet as well. I got the okay to install an EV charger. We're just going through the red tape process internally to get that done. And the way that I was able to do it is by combining the Clean Fleets EV incentive that is basically paying fully for the EV charging station, and the JCP&L incentive that is paying fully for the installation cost. So really we're able to install the charger at no cost to the taxpayers.
That is a key point. We did do that. We did install one EV charging station for public use with the use of grants. And there was no objection to that because it was free. And we did all the work. So under those circumstances, it works. But a fleet is different, because that means that the town employees need to use it, and they need to administer it. And I'm not in a position, I can't do that, either one of those things. So a little, I guess, more gentle prodding is in order.
Very good. So if we have no more discussion, I'll thank everyone for joining. Our next meeting should be the second, as always, second Wednesday in a month, which actually happens to be pretty early in February. And I haven't figured, oh yes, I know what will be the presentation. It'll be about Aptera. I love Aptera, as you can tell. So thank you very much, and have a good night.